It had been a long week. One of those weeks where time seemed to stretch and twist, where silence in the house grew heavier by the hour. Elena had been distant lately, not in a way that screamed betrayal, but in the quiet, almost invisible kind, the kind that only someone truly in love would notice. We had been together for 5 years. That night, as I watched TV alone in our living room, she leaned over, kissed me on the forehead, and said, "I'm staying at Lara's tonight. Girls' night. You don't mind, do you?" I smiled, tired. Of course not. Enjoy. But I did mind. There had been signs. Little ones. Messages she quickly swiped away. Unexplained smiles at her phone. Longer hours at work, and an ever-growing connection with her new colleague, Daniel. I had met him once, just once, and there was something about his eyes that rubbed me wrong. He was too smooth, too calculated. But I said nothing. I wanted to trust her. An hour passed. Then 2. I sat staring blankly at the screen, her words echoing in my mind. Lara's? No. Something wasn't right. I opened our location-sharing app. She had turned it off. Red flag. Without thinking, I grabbed my keys. I wasn't going to accuse. I wasn't going to confront. I just needed peace of mind. The night air was cool and damp. I drove in silence, my heart pounding with every turn. Daniel lived on the edge of town in one of those soulless new-build houses. I had passed it once before when dropping her off after team dinner. She'd said it was just a lift that night. Just a lift. I slowed as I approached. My hands trembled slightly as I looked around. Then I saw it. Her car, parked right outside his house. I killed the engine, parked across the street, and sat in the darkness of my car. My stomach turned. My breath caught in my throat. I stared at her car like it was some foreign object, something I could no longer recognize. My phone buzzed. Her name lit up the screen. I had called her without realizing. "Hey, babe," she answered, voice light and carefree. I swallowed. "Hey, how's Laura?" "Oh, we're having a blast," she said quickly. "Watching a movie. Eating junk. Just unwinding. I'm so glad you're cool with me staying." "Of course," I said slowly. "What movie?" The Notebook," she said after a pause. Laura loves those tearjerkers." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "Do me a favor?" "Sure," she said. "Look out the window. Tell me what you see." Silence. 15 seconds passed. Then movement. The blinds in the window, directly above her car, shifted. Someone was there. A silhouette. A hesitation. Then she saw me. I waved. She didn't move. She didn't wave back. I hung up. I didn't scream. I didn't confront. I simply drove off, heart hollowed out like an abandoned house. I didn't go home. I drove for hours, replaying the call over and over, trying to figure out which part hurt the most, the lie, or how easy it came to her lips. The next morning, I texted her, "You can come pick up your things later. I won't be there." That was it. I had hoped, foolishly, that what we had could survive anything. But even in our toughest times, I never expected this. And the worst part, she didn't even try to deny it. Not really. She just froze. And sometimes silence is louder than any confession. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I made a list of everything I should have seen. Every time I let love blind me. Every second I defended her without evidence. But love isn't logical. It doesn't wait for proof. It just hopes. And that hope, that was what hurt the most. The morning sun cast sharp slits of light through the blinds as I stood in the doorway of my apartment. The air was still heavy with the scent of her perfume. That subtle sweetness that used to feel like comfort now felt suffocating. I didn't expect her to reply to my message, but at 9:12 a.m., she did. "Can we talk?" I didn't answer. I didn't want to hear her explanation because I already knew it. I'd heard versions of it before, from friends, from stories, from movies. It didn't mean anything. I was confused. It was a mistake. But the truth is, people don't accidentally cheat. They choose to. She arrived around noon. I heard her hesitant knock, but I didn't open the door. I watched from the balcony as she let herself in with her key, still thinking she had a place here. She paused in the hallway. Her eyes scanned the apartment like it had aged in the last 12 hours. Maybe it had. Or maybe I had. "Elijah," she called softly. I didn't answer. She turned toward the bedroom, stopped at the doorway, and saw what I'd done. I had packed her things, neatly, respectfully, clothes folded, jewelry wrapped, her favorite mug washed and placed atop the box like a tombstone. She didn't cry. She just stood there, staring. "I'm sorry," she whispered, thinking maybe I was in the room. Maybe I'd hear her. I was, and I did, but the words meant nothing anymore. She stayed for almost an hour. I listened to the creaks in the floor, the rustle of bags, the sighs she thought were private. When she finally left, she didn't close the door behind her. I waited 10 minutes before I moved. Her silence as she exited the apartment said more than any conversation ever could. The place felt quieter than ever. I stared at the empty shelf where she used to keep her candles, the space in the closet now barren, the mirror by the door reflecting a man I barely recognized. Later that day, I went for a long walk. The park we used to visit on Sundays looked different now, less romantic, more staged. The swings didn't creak with joy, and the benches seemed to whisper secrets. I sat down and tried to remember the last time we were happy, truly happy. Not the kind you post on social media or fabricate at dinner parties, but real, deep, mutual happiness. It was harder than I thought. There had been a distance between us for months. Subtle things. The way she looked past me when we spoke. The way her hand stopped reaching for mine at night. I blamed work stress. I blamed routine. I never blamed her, until now. My phone buzzed again. "Daniel, hey man, I think we should talk." My jaw clenched. Talk? What could he possibly say that wouldn't make it worse? I imagined his smug face, the kind that always seemed just a bit too pleased with itself. Did he feel guilt? Or just fear? I didn't respond. That night, I went back home and removed every photo of her, not out of anger, but to reclaim space, emotionally, physically, spiritually. Then I opened a blank document and started writing. Not a letter, not a message to her, but a confession to myself, a way to purge the ache before it became permanent. I loved you even when I had no reason to. I trusted you because you asked me to, and now I stand here, broken not because you lied, but because I believed you wouldn't. The next day, Laura, the real friend, texted me. She had no idea about the lie. Apparently, Elena hadn't even told her she was staying over. She was out of town. Lara's message was short. "I don't know what's going on, but you deserve better. Call me if you want to talk." I didn't call, but I did reply. "Thanks. Maybe sometime." It wasn't revenge I wanted. Not yet. Not rage or payback. What I wanted was clarity. Why him? Why now? And did she ever love me at all? The pain didn't come in waves. It came in echoes. In tiny things. The way she folded towels, her half-used shampoo, the coffee order saved in my phone. Everything that stayed reminded me of what had left, and yet in all the wreckage, one thing was clear. This wasn't the end. This was the beginning of something else. I didn't know it yet, but it would be mine. And this time, no one would take it from me. The days that followed blurred together, like static on an old television screen. I went through the motions, eating, working, sleeping. But inside, I wasn't really there. I was still stuck in that moment. Her car outside his house, her voice on the phone, and those blinds shifting just enough to reveal the truth I already feared. One night, sleep refused come. I found myself scrolling through old photos of us, laughing in the kitchen, cuddled up on the couch, fake smiles at weddings. Were those moments ever real? Or had she already been living a double life while I lived in a dream? My thoughts spiraled, and finally, I did something I swore I wouldn't. I called Daniel. He didn't answer. Coward. But an hour later, he texted me. "Daniel, I didn't mean for it to happen like this. I'm sorry." What a convenient phrase. Didn't mean. As if betrayal was a spilled glass of water, not a dagger to the spine. I stared at the message for a long time before typing out my reply. Me, then how did you mean it to happen? He left me on read. Typical. The next day, I drove past Elena's office. Her car wasn't there. I already knew she'd probably taken time off. But what caught my attention was Daniel's car. It was there. I parked across the street and watched from a distance. He exited the building around noon, talking on his phone, smiling, laughing. So casual, so normal, like he hadn't set fire to someone else's life just days earlier. I followed him, not because I had a plan, not because I intended to confront him, but because I needed to see what kind of man could do what he did and still sleep at night. He went to lunch alone, sat on the patio of some overpriced bistro, and ordered a glass of wine. And that's when I realized something. He wasn't guilty. He wasn't sorry. He was relieved. Because he didn't see me as a person. To him, I was just a loose end. A mistake Elena hadn't cleaned up yet. And that realization changed something in me. I wasn't going to scream at him in the street. I wasn't going to throw punches or send angry texts. I was going to be calm, collected, strategic. And if he wanted to play games behind people's backs, I was going to show him what it felt like to have the world pulled out from under his feet. When I got home, I called an old friend Julian. Julian wasn't the type you call unless you're serious. He didn't deal in gossip or cheap drama. He dealt in results. And he owed me a favor. Long time, he said, his voice low and steady. I need some information, I replied. Who? I gave him Daniel's full name, workplace, and the bare details. Julian chuckled. Got it. Give me a day. I didn't ask how he'd do it. I didn't want to know. But deep down, I felt something light up inside me. Something dangerous. A day later, Julian called back. Your boy's not as clean as he looks. What do you mean? He's got skeletons. Lots of them. Affairs at work. Misused company funds. A history with interns. If your girl is with him, she's just another name on the list. The rage I've been holding in my chest flared like wildfire. Can you prove it? I can get what you need. But what are you planning to do? I paused. I want to watch everything he built fall apart, piece by piece. Julian exhaled. Then buckle up. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about what Julian told me. Elena wasn't his first, just the latest, and probably not the last. Did she know? Or worse, did she not care? Either way, it didn't matter. She made her choice. And now, so had I. I started documenting everything. Dates, times, conversations, behavior. I compiled the digital trail they left behind, like it was evidence in a trial. Because, in a way, it was not a trial in court, but a trial of character, of loyalty, of truth. I wasn't seeking justice through violence. I was preparing for exposure. They thought they were careful, discreet, but people like them always slip up. They forget who they were before they became who they pretended to be. And that's where I'd strike, in the spaces between lies, in the cracks of their carefully curated masks. They thought I was gone, broken, a memory they could laugh about over drinks. But they forgot the most dangerous thing about betrayal. It teaches you to stop trusting others and start trusting yourself. And I was just getting started. The first time I saw Elena again was a complete accident. Or maybe it wasn't. Maybe fate had a sick sense of humor. It was a rainy Wednesday, the kind of day where time feels heavy and the world slows down. I'd stop by the cafe near my old office, just try and feel normal again. She walked in like she hadn't set my life on fire. She didn't see me at first. She stood at the counter, ordering the same drink she always had. Vanilla latte, extra hot, no foam. I remembered the way she used to smile after the first sip, like it was her favorite part of the day. But this time, there was no smile. Her face was tired, tense, like the vacation she'd taken hadn't offered any peace. She turned around, and our eyes met, and for a second, the world went silent. Her lips parted slightly. She didn't expect to see me. Not here. Not so soon. I stood still, watching her like a stranger. She took a cautious step forward. Hey! That voice. So familiar. Too familiar. I didn't respond right away. Just looked at her and waited. I was going to call, she said softly. Were you? She dropped her gaze. I didn't plan for any of this to happen like it did. There was again, didn't plan, that useless excuse people cling to when they've been caught. I just needed space. Time to think. I leaned forward slightly. You needed time to think, so you lied to me and ran off with my boss? It wasn't like that. Then tell me, I said, my voice sharper than I meant. What was it like? She blinked, startled, and then the tears came, crocodile tears. Elena, I said, keeping my voice steady. You lied, repeatedly, and you didn't just betray me. You let me believe something was wrong with me, that I was paranoid, that I was overthinking. But the whole time, you were hiding this, hiding him. She looked down. It wasn't just about him. Things between us, they weren't the same anymore. Because you made them that way, I said. The barista called her name. She didn't move. I stepped aside, giving her space to leave. But before she turned away, I said one last thing. Don't come back for your things. They're gone. She looked up, confused. What do you mean? I sold the house. Gave away everything you left behind. There's nothing here for you anymore. Her face twisted in disbelief. You can't be serious. Oh, I'm very serious. I left her standing there, latte untouched, heart probably pounding. But I didn't care. She made her choice. And so did I. That night, Julian sent me a file. Photos, emails, messages, everything I needed. Daniel's professional life was a carefully stacked house of cards. One push in the right place, and it would collapse. I spent the next few days building a timeline, not just of Elena's betrayal, but of Daniel's entire pattern. Names of women he'd manipulated, messages that flirted the line between unprofessional and illegal, records of business expenses that didn't line up. I wasn't going to expose him publicly. Not yet. I wasn't after social media drama or public humiliation. No, this was about power, about leverage. And I had it now. With Julian's help, I drafted an anonymous complaint to the company's board. I didn't sign it. I didn't leave any trace. But I made sure it would land exactly where it needed to, with documentation that couldn't be ignored. All I had to do was wait. 2 weeks later, the first crack appeared. An internal investigation was opened at Daniel's firm. He was asked to take administrative leave. Of course, the details were private. But I didn't need the news. I could see it on Elena's face when she showed up at my door. She looked panicked. What did you do? I leaned against the frame, calm as ice. What do you mean? Daniel. He's being investigated. They froze his accounts. He's freaking out. And you think that has something to do with me? She narrowed her eyes. You're the only one who knew. I shrugged. Maybe karma finally caught up with him. Her face contorted with frustration. He's not the only one being hurt by this. No, I suppose you are too. Must be hard losing 2 lives at once. She shook her head. You don't understand. I made a mistake, but I didn't want to hurt you like this. I stared at her for a long moment. Elena, you didn't just hurt me. You shattered every memory we had and replaced it with a lie. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Goodbye, I said, and this time I meant it. The rest unraveled fast. Daniel's career tanked. He didn't get fired immediately, but the damage was done. Reputation stained. Future uncertain. Elena stuck by him for a while, but eventually she stopped showing up with him at the places they used to frequent. Rumor had it she moved back in with her sister across town. I never confirmed it. Didn't need to, because the best revenge wasn't rage. It was silence. It was survival. It was living better, not bitter. And that's exactly what I intended to do. After Elena's visit, something inside me finally settled. Not peace, no, not yet, but a kind of cold clarity. The storm had passed, and in its place was quiet. Not the comforting kind, but the heavy silence that follows destruction. I didn't miss her. What I missed was the idea of her, the version I had created in my mind, the version who never lied, who loved me deeply, who stayed faithful through the chaos of real life. But that woman never existed. Not really. And with Daniel's world falling apart, I felt no remorse, no guilt. He had taken something from me, and I had taken everything back, plus interest. Still, the days felt long, empty, like I was floating between what had been and what might come next. I knew revenge wasn't the end. I couldn't build my future on ashes. So I started doing the one thing I hadn't done in a long time, living for myself. I went back to the gym, ate real food, caught up with friends I hadn't seen in months, even applied for a new job, something far away from Daniel's world. And one afternoon, while cleaning out my phone, I came across a voicemail from Elena. It was from 6 months ago. "Hey, babe, I'm just calling to say I love you. I know things have been crazy lately, but I want you to know I'm still here. We'll get through this, okay? You and me, always." I deleted it without listening to the rest. She had already left long before she actually walked out the door. A week later, I got a call from Julian. "I think you want to see this," he said, and sent a link. I opened it. An anonymous whistleblower blog post, detailed, damning, and obviously written by someone inside Daniel's company. It outlined his relationships with subordinates, mishandling of travel funds, and more. This wasn't me. I told Julian. "I know," he said. "Someone else had an axe to grind. Your little nudge just opened the door. Turns out, once the illusion cracks, the rest crumbles on its own." The blog post went viral within industry circles. Daniel was forced to resign. And while no criminal charges were filed, his professional credibility was ruined. He moved to a smaller firm in a different state. I only knew because I checked once and then stopped caring. Elena never tried to contact me again. I'd heard rumors she'd taken time off work. Her friends distanced themselves from her. She didn't just lose me. She lost the life we'd built, the one she assumed would always be there. But this chapter wasn't about her anymore. It was about me. One night, I met someone at a friend's party. Her name was Claire. She was nothing like Elena. No games, no blurred truths. She asked real questions, listened with intent, and had this easy confidence that made you feel like you could breathe around her. We talked until sunrise. She didn't ask about my past, and I didn't offer it. Not yet. But for the first time in months, I laughed without faking it, smiled without forcing it. Something real, something new. Still, memories have claws. And one night, I drove past a house I'd sold, the place Elena and I used to call home. A light was on in the upstairs window. A new family lived there now. Kids, toys in the yard. Wind chimes by the porch. It wasn't my home anymore. And oddly, that made me smile. Because I wasn't the same person anymore either. I wasn't broken. I wasn't bitter. I was just becoming someone new, someone better. It was as I drove Sunday afternoon when I felt it for the first time in a long time. I hadn't touched since before Elena disappeared. I wasn't sure why I did it. Curiosity, maybe, or some strange pull to revisit a version of myself that still believed in her. There were old folders, photos, trip itineraries, a half-written note titled Our Future. But what stopped me were the drafts. Dozens of unsent emails, all addressed to her. Some written during arguments. Some during long nights she claimed to be working late. Some after the night she vanished. They were raw, honest, pathetic, even. "I don't know what I did to push you away, but I'll do anything to fix this. Please just come home. I love you too much to let this fall apart." Reading them was like watching someone else drown in real time. That man wasn't me anymore. I selected all of them and hit delete. I met Claire again that week. We had coffee, walked through the city at dusk, and talked about everything except the past. She had her own story. Divorced, no kids. Started over from scratch after a messy end to her marriage. There was strength in her simplicity. No walls. No secrets. It terrified me, because I'd gotten used to the mess, to chaos disguised as passion. But this was calm, and it forced me to slow down and look inward. "You're quiet," she said one evening as we watched the sunset from a rooftop bar. "I'm not used to this," I admitted. "To what? Peace?" she teased. I smiled. "Exactly." A few days later, I got an unexpected message from a blocked number. It was a photo. Elena on a beach alone. No caption. No explanation. I stared at it for a moment before deleting it. I knew what she wanted. A reaction. A crack in my silence. But she didn't deserve that anymore. My life wasn't staged for her guilt. Around that same time, I got an email from Daniel. Subject, closure? I hesitated before opening it. I don't know what you told them, but congratulations. You won. She's gone. I lost a job. I'm moving next week. Hope it was worth it. I closed it without replying. There was no winning here, just an ending. But if he wanted to believe I orchestrated his downfall with some grand plan, let him. The truth was much simpler. He'd buried himself. I'd just let gravity do the rest. Claire noticed something was off. We were having dinner when she finally asked, "Do you still love her?" The question caught me off guard. "No," I said, "but I think a part of me still hates her." She didn't flinch. "Then you're not done healing." "I know." She reached across the table, took my hand. "I'm not asking for all of you yet, just the part that's ready." And in that moment, I realized how rare that was. Someone willing to meet you where you are, instead of demanding where you should be. That night, I started writing again. Not texts, not emails, just thoughts, in a journal. Things I never had the space to say out loud. About trust, about grief, about what it meant to be betrayed by the person who swore they'd never hurt you, and about the slow, beautiful, brutal process of starting over. Each page felt like peeling back another layer I hadn't touched in years. And with each word, I felt lighter. Weeks passed. Claire and I grew closer. No grand declarations, no rushed emotions. Just two people learning to exist together. Honestly, patiently. And one night, as we sat in silence watching a movie, she rested her head on my shoulder and whispered, "I'm glad I met you." I looked down at her, smiling. So am I. Not because she replaced Elena, but because she reminded me I hadn't lost the capacity to feel. It was a gray, cloud-heavy morning just when the knock came. I was ready to let someone in again. Steady, intentional. I wasn't expecting anyone. Claire had already left for work. The landlord never came without notice. And yet, the sound was so familiar it made my skin tighten. I opened the door. There she was, Elena, standing in front of me like a ghost that never quite knew how to vanish properly. She looked different, not in the way that time changes people, but in the way guilt does. She was thinner, eyes a bit sunken, still beautiful, but dimmed. She held a single small suitcase in one hand. "Hi," she said. My mouth went dry. "You shouldn't be here." "I know." I didn't move. Neither did she. The silence stretched out like a tightrope between us. "Just 5 minutes," she added. I stepped aside. She sat on the edge of the couch, her fingers gripping the strap of her purse like it might run off without her. I stood across the room, arms crossed, trying to contain the 100 things I want to say. "I wasn't going to come," she said, voice soft. "But I needed to see you. One last time. You already said goodbye, Elena. You just didn't say it to my face." She flinched but nodded. "I deserve that. What do you want?" To explain. "I don't need your explanations. I need your absence." She winced, but instead of leaving, she reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope. "I wrote this. For you. It's everything. You don't have to read it now, or ever, but I needed you to have it." She placed it on the coffee table. Her hand trembled slightly. "You disappeared for weeks. I thought something had happened to you. I called the police." I said, letting the anger finally break through. "I know. I saw the report." "You saw it?" "Elena, I thought you were dead." "I'm sorry." She didn't cry. Maybe she'd run out of tears. Maybe she knew they wouldn't work this time. "I didn't come back to be forgiven," she continued. "I just needed to face you once, to own what I did." "And what exactly did you do?" I asked, my voice quiet but razor sharp. "I ran away with someone I didn't even care about. I lied. I betrayed everything we built." "I know." I stared at her. "Why?" She finally looked up. eyes red, because I was afraid. Afraid that I wasn't enough. That I'd be stuck in a life I didn't deserve. And when he, your boss, paid attention to me, it made me feel powerful. I shook my head slowly. So you traded love for attention? Yes. And now I realize that attention fades. But regret follows you everywhere. I didn't say anything. She stood up. I'm going to leave now, she said. I won't come back. But please, someday, maybe just read the letter. She walked to the door, paused. I really did love you. And then she was gone. I stared at the envelope for hours. I didn't open it that day. Or the next. But I didn't throw it away either. I put it in the drawer where I kept things that still had meaning, even if they no longer had a place in my life. Claire came over that evening. She immediately sensed something was off. She came back. I told her. Claire didn't speak. She just nodded and waited. She left this. I showed her the envelope. Did you read it? No. Will you? Eventually. She looked at me gently. Do you want me to stay? I do. And she did. That night, lying beside someone who hadn't lied to me, hadn't broken me, I realized something important. Elena's return didn't matter. Her letter didn't matter. What mattered was who I had become without her, and who I was still becoming. A week later, I burned the letter, not out of hate, not out of anger, but because I no longer needed her words to move forward. Some stories don't need closure. They just need to end. 2 months had passed since Elena showed up at my door with that envelope I eventually chose to burn. In some way, that moment felt like the true end. Not the silence when she disappeared, not the revelations about the beach vacation with my boss, not even when I sold the house and gave away her clothes. No, the end came quietly, with a soft crackling of fire and a sense of peace I hadn't felt in over a year. Now, the days were filled with movement again. Routine. Coffee brewed at 7 a.m. gym by 8 o'clock. Meetings, errands, quiet nights, simple dinners. Claire was still in my life, patient and gentle, never asking more than I could give. And yet, I could feel something stirring beneath the surface, something I couldn't name just yet. One day, I ran into Daniel, an old college friend I hadn't seen in years. He spotted me at the bookstore of all places, his voice of surprise in the calm hush of the aisle. Is that you, man? I almost didn't recognize you. He looked the same, maybe more tired around the eyes, maybe a little full in the face, but still with that same mischievous energy. Daniel? I smiled, shaking his hand. Damn, it's been what? 8 years. More like 10. We laughed. Still reading psychological thrillers, huh? He said, pointing to the book in my hand. Guilty. He hesitated, then added, You look good, but different. What's been going on with you? I paused. The truth was too long, too complicated, too emotional for an impromptu chat among strangers and paperbacks. A lot, I said simply. You free for coffee? We ended up at a small cafe nearby, the kind with crooked tables and chipped mugs, but the best cinnamon rolls in the city. Over steaming cups, I told him the story. Well, most of it. I left out the letter. I left out how I sat on the floor of an empty house once and cried until I fell asleep. He listened, face unreadable. When I finished, he whistled low. Man, that's heavy. But you're standing. That says something. Some days I feel like I'm still in pieces. Sure, but pieces can be rebuilt, sometimes into something stronger. It sounded cliché, but the way he said it made me believe it. Later that evening, I sat in front of my computer, staring at the blinking cursor. There was a time I wanted to write about what happened, as therapy, as revenge, as a warning. But now I wanted to write something because I had survived it, because I knew what it meant to love deeply and lose terribly, because others might be stuck in that in-between place, just like I was for so long. The words came slowly at first. Then, all at once, I wasn't writing about Elena. I was writing about me. Claire found me at 2 a.m., still typing. She rubbed her eyes, leaned against the doorframe. I haven't seen you this focused in weeks, she said with a small smile. I think I'm finally ready to tell my story. Just not the way I thought I would. She walked over and gently placed a hand on my shoulder. Then do it. I'll be here. Weeks passed. The manuscript grew. I didn't have an agent, didn't have a plan, but I had something again, a spark, a sense of direction, a voice. Claire supported me the whole way, reading every draft, offering quiet suggestions, cheering on the moments where I doubted myself. Eventually, I emailed it to a small online magazine, not expecting anything. A month later, they published it under the title, The Man Who Vanished While Staying Still. It wasn't viral. It didn't blow up, but it reached people. I started getting emails from strangers, men and women, who had gone through betrayal, lies, loss, who thanked me for being honest, for saying what they couldn't, for surviving. One message in particular hit me hard. I was going to walk away from everything, from my job, my son. I felt invisible. But your story, your quiet courage, pulled me back from the edge. Thank you. I read it 3 times, then closed my laptop. That was the night I knew. Pain wasn't just something to endure. It could be transformed, given shape, given meaning. It had taken losing everything to find the version of myself I actually wanted to be. Not bitter, not broken, rebuilt. The story had been live for nearly a month now. I didn't check the stats anymore. Claire did that sometimes, just to smile and tell me, another 100 people read it today. But I stopped needing the numbers. What I hadn't stopped, though, was opening my drafts folder. There was a message I had written weeks ago. An email addressed to Elena. It wasn't angry. Not anymore. But it also wasn't forgiving. It was honest. Subject: I'm not sending this. Hey, I don't expect you to read this. Maybe it'll go to spam. Maybe you blocked me. That's okay. I'm not writing this for a response. I just want you to know I survived. Not because of you, but in spite of you. The day you left without a word, I thought I would lose my mind. I searched for you everywhere, like a dog chasing shadows. I thought you'd been taken, hurt, dead, but you were on a beach. With him. The betrayal wasn't just that you left. It's that you let me suffer while you relaxed under a sun you didn't earn. I loved you. I really did. But now, I don't think you ever loved me back. Not in the way I hoped. That's okay, too, because I love myself now. Enough to say this. I forgive what happened, but I don't want it back. I don't want you back. And when you come across my story, and I know one day you will, I hope you feel something. Not guilt, not regret, just clarity. I'm doing fine now. You don't need to reply. Me, I read it again that night, and just like every other night, I didn't send it. Some things were better left between you and the void. The next weekend, Claire invited me to a small publishing event. A bunch of indie authors, bloggers, and creatives were gathering at a local library for a storytelling panel. You don't have to speak, she said. Just come, listen, breathe the same air as people who survived too. I went. It was quiet, low lights, paper cups of bad coffee, soft conversations. A tall man in glasses told a story about losing his wife to cancer. A young woman read a poem about forgiving her father for leaving. Every voice cracked just a little. When someone asked for audience volunteers, Claire nudged me gently. Don't make me bribe you with pizza, she whispered. I laughed and stood up. I didn't have a printed copy of my story. No rehearsed lines. I just told it like it was. How I had trusted someone who disappeared. How the police got involved. How the betrayal came not just from her, but from someone who employed me, smiled at me, gave me raises. I told them about the fake missing persons case. The bank accounts frozen. The long silence that followed. The envelope with the note. The fire. And finally, the writing. When I finished, no one clapped. They just sat with it. And then a woman near the back, probably in her 60s, stood up and simply said, "That was real. Thank you." Only then did the room fill with applause. After the panel, I stepped outside into the cool night air. I felt lighter, not healed completely, but open. Claire joined me, hands in her coat pockets. She leaned into my side. "Proud of you," she said softly. I looked at her, really looked at her. "Why haven't you asked for more?" I asked, She smiled sadly. Because I know you're still walking out of a fire. You can't run into new love when you're still covered in ash. I touched her hand. Maybe I'm finally ready to wash off the last of it. The next morning, something strange happened. I got a letter, an actual letter. No return address. No name. Just my name, written in a rushed, shaky hand. Inside was a photograph. Old, grainy. It showed me and Elena sitting on the porch of our old house. She was laughing. I was looking at her like she was my whole world. On the back, a message in that same familiar handwriting. I was young, selfish, afraid of being ordinary. You were too good for me. I just didn't want to admit it. I'm sorry. You were the only real thing I ever had. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I folded the photo, put it in a drawer, and went downstairs. Claire was making pancakes. She danced a little to the music playing softly in the kitchen. I slid behind her and wrapped my arms around her waist. Something smells good, I murmured. She turned, eyebrows raised. The pancakes or me? Both. She laughed. That sound, so different from Elena's. Not better, just more present, more here. People say healing isn't linear. I used to hate that phrase, but now I understood it. Some days, you wake up missing the worst parts of someone. Other days, you forget their face for hours at a time. And once in a while, you stand in your kitchen, the morning after holding the confrontation was quiet, and realize you're not missing anything at all. No angry texts, no explanations, just silence. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, half expecting her to walk into the door like nothing had happened, holding coffee and smiling the way she always did on Sundays. But this Sunday was different. This was the first day of the rest of my life. Alone. I had packed her things the night before, slowly, methodically, every sweater, every book, every framed picture of us. I didn't throw anything, didn't break anything. I just folded, boxed, and sealed it all like a chapter of a book I was finally closing. I placed everything in the hallway by the door, leaving a note on top. Your things are here. No need to knock. At 9:14 a.m., I heard her car pull up. I didn't move. I watched from the upstairs window, unseen, as she stood there hesitating. She didn't look like someone who was ashamed, more like someone who had been caught in her own illusion and had nowhere else to hide. She glanced up at the house, but didn't knock. Instead, she picked up the boxes and walked them, one by one, to the trunk of her car. I watched as her hand lingered on the door handle before she finally got in, and then she was gone. But that wasn't the end. Not yet. 2 days later, I received a letter in the mailbox. No name, just my name on the envelope in handwriting I recognized instantly. Inside was a note, short, emotional, and written with the kind of care I hadn't seen from her in months. I never wanted to hurt you. I just got lost in something that made me feel needed again. It wasn't love, not like what we had, but I didn't know how to fix what was broken between us. I'm sorry it ended this way. There was no return address, no phone number, no second page. I didn't cry, not because I wasn't hurt, but because I had already cried everything out the night I watched her peek through that window, knowing she was caught. Weeks passed. I started rebuilding, not just the apartment, but myself. I went back to the gym. I reconnected with friends I hadn't seen in months. I even took a weekend trip alone, something I hadn't done in years. It felt strange at first, the solitude, but over time, it became peace. And then one night I saw her, not in person, on social media. A tag photo, her and him, smiling, in a new city, a new job, a new life. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel jealousy. I felt free, because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't chasing answers. I wasn't hoping for an apology. I wasn't waiting for closure. I had already given it to myself. Looking back, I don't regret loving her. I regret not walking away sooner when I sense a shift. I regret giving more than I had, thinking it would be enough. But now I know love isn't about holding on to someone who wants to leave. It's about knowing when to let go. And I did that night. I stood on the balcony with a glass of wine in my hand, the city lights shimmering below me. I breathed in the cool air, feeling lighter than I had in months. This was not the life I planned, but maybe it was the life I needed. And somewhere out there, I hoped she found what she was really looking for, because I had finally found mine: peace.